Agree. That fans deserve. We have given some fairly strong opinions on the upcoming World Series involving the Diamondbacks and the Rangers. And I'm told we have a caller from Tampa. His name is Booger, and he's on ESPN Radio. Booger, thank you for calling in. We always appreciate the time. What is your reaction to what you have heard Hembo and I have to say here?
Well, good morning, Michael Greenberg and Paul Hembekides. I'm driving down the road, and it's been a tremendous morning. It's 82 degrees. The sun is out. I've already finished a round of golf, and I hear you two spewing the blasphemy that you guys are spewing. Number one, and by the way, I have several points. I'll start with number one.
Mm-hmm.
You guys talk about the season and, whatever team in whatever sport finishes number one, and a team like the Diamondbacks, a team like the New York Giants, a team like the Buccaneers of Tom Brady, who kind of sneak into the postseason and win the title or play for the title, kind of invalidates the season. That's so wrong. The regular season is meant to it's meant as a qualifying process for the postseason. Every team sport has it, and some individual sports have it. We're going to crown our champion in the postseason, so therefore we must come up with a criteria in the regular season, whatever that criteria is, to qualify a certain number of teams for said postseason. And so once that qualifying is met and we get to the postseason, whoever wins that postseason is by far the champion. It doesn't matter if you were outscored by the other teams by more runs. It doesn't matter if the team you beat had more wins than you did. There is a qualifying process by all teams, and you met your qualification. Point number two, Hembo, you said it's easier to win 4 football games than it is, it's harder to win 4 football games than it is to win 9 out of 15 baseball games.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that the hardest thing in sports to do is hit a round ball with a round bat. So I would disagree with that. So let's not poo-poo on the Diamondbacks, guys. They beat the Phillies, and I get it. A lot of people around the country wanted to see Phillies-Astros. I wanted to see Phillies-Astros, but we got Rangers-Diamondbacks. So I think we can't sit here today and talk about the process when it's the same way in hockey, basketball, golf now has a qualifying process, football and baseball.
So that's fair, Booger, obviously, and I think you are speaking for a lot of people, and I appreciate it, and we love you. So let me make my side of the argument. Baseball, first of all, is a little different because historically it has been the opposite. Now, that's not to say, the worst reason to do anything is because we've been doing it that way forever, but historically, as you know, it has always been the hardest one to qualify for. You had to be genuinely exceptional to get a chance to come through that qualifying process, as you correctly described the regular season to be. Secondly, as you know, baseball's, by the virtue of baseball season being so long, the potential for randomness, as Hembo said, literally every team in baseball at one point this season won 9 games in a 15-game stretch. So it isn't the same thing as it would be to win a best-of-7 series in basketball. I think you genuinely prove you are the better team. I don't know that it's the same in baseball, and that is my concern.
Well, in baseball, Green, the team had one stretch where they won 9 out of 15, but how many times did they do it?
Right.
Because I think the better teams probably did it more times than not.
Right.
And so you're right. It's easier maybe to do it one time over the course of 162 because of the volume and the quantity of games. However, I will argue that the better teams always win more. The cream always rises to the top. And I don't want to get into run differential and all that. I just know the Diamondbacks, their record was 84-78. I think I heard him say.
Yeah.
And if that's the record in the qualifying process that got them in the season, they've just won every series they've been in. And right now they're going to take on Texas. And if they win 4 games, they're going to clearly be the champion, regardless of how many runs they score. Now, if we want to go back and change the qualifying process, okay, that's fine. And say whoever wins or whoever scores the most runs are the champion. But I don't think we want to do that because that's not the sport.
All right, the most important question is, where do we play this morning and how do we do?
We played a nice little Pete Dye course town. Didn't quite hit it as good off the tee as I wanted to, but as you know, Greeny, I can putt it phenomenally.
Yes, we have the Booger McFarland Memorial spot on the 15th green at Bayonne Golf Club. Booger, you're the best, my friend. Thank you for calling in. We'll see you soon.
Have a good one. Y'all later.
And
Hey, man.
Booger, no one loves the golf more than he does. Yeah.
I want to make something exceedingly clear.
Yeah.
Not to speak for you, but to speak at least for me and maybe for us. By no means am I diminishing, and by no means am I discrediting what the Diamondbacks have accomplished.
Right.
That's not the point. The Diamondbacks deserved to win. The Diamondbacks did what I thought was going to be the impossible. They went to Philadelphia and won consecutive games in that building against that team. They deserve to be in the World Series based on the system that we have, and more power to them. And if I'm a fan of that team, I'm waking up thrilled this morning. And the fact that I have to listen to this conversation on the radio, I would feel the same way that Booger McFarland does and would voice that same complaint, whether it be on my Twitter feed or anywhere else. The point is not that what they did was not legitimate. The point is, do we have the best system? This provides us a peg, an opportunity to ask aloud that question.
No.
What matters to us more?
Well, here's the thing. We did it right. We asked the question before it happened. We were talking about this on the show the day the regular season ended. We were saying, are we prepared to deal with that? Not expecting this to happen,
Sure.
but it did. Mm-hmm. So that's the point. We're not just jumping in for those of you who are saying, oh, listen to them jumping in now. We had this conversation 3 weeks ago on this show. It is a concern. Parenthetically, can I tell you my favorite Booger McFarland golf story? Well, it's a tie. There are two favorites. My first favorite is that he was filling in for Mike one day. He was hosting Mike and Mike with me. Booger loves the best thing. Booger knows more about other sports than almost any of our other analysts. He knows baseball. He knows basketball. He knows golf. He's extraordinarily good on all the sports. And he actually said on the air, and he meant it, that he believed he could beat Gary Player head up, no strokes at that moment in time. Gary was probably right around 80, maybe 78 at that time. And Gary Player called in, and it was one of the great conversations I've ever been a part of, in which Gary Player said that he would beat him if he had to walk the fairways on his hands, that if he wasn't allowed to use his feet, but had to actually walk the entire 18 holes on his hands, he would still beat him. And then he said, and I'll never forget, Booga, that's how he said Booga, I've seen your swing. It looks like a cow giving birth to a roll of barbed wire, which was a great line. The other line, and I always point out that anyone who's ever been to Bayonne Golf Club knows exactly what I'm talking about. The 15th green is elevated, very, very elevated. And if the pin is placed in front, there's a false front. You have to make sure you are well past it. Booger was well past it. He was putting down towards this. The second.
No further update on Justin since Monday. Continues to work with the trainers. He's doing everything he can to progress. And it is progressing. Remains week to week. Opening return to practice window is Braxton and Kareem today. And again, we'll see how it goes. We're just, they're open for practice. We'll see how they go as it goes this week and beyond that. And then 23 Johnson, not clear yet for protocol, but he's back to practice today, and then we'll know more after today. The full injury report is after practice today as well. So, big challenge ahead of us this week. Playing the Chargers. Obviously, a lot of skill, a lot of talent on their roster defensively. The two rushers they have. It's obviously we're gonna have to set our offense up appropriately for that. They're strong in the middle in terms of their tackles as well as their inside backers. The really good on the perimeter in terms of the corners. A lot of experience there. And they got obviously one of the best safeties in ball. So it's going to be a big set of challenges for our offense to be able to set up against these guys. And then defensively, obviously, quarterback, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. We're going against this week. Really good runners. Strong runners. Two different types of runners there, but. Again, tight end level, really solid at the tight end level. And then obviously one of the best receivers in the league we face again this week. And it's a good receiving core as well. So those guys work well together. You guys saw the game against Kansas City. They were in it the whole way. And, it was a heck of a battle. But we got a bunch of challenges ahead of us this week and working into first and second down today and getting our plan in. Had our meetings already, had some of our walkthroughs, and we'll work through practice. But with that, I'll open up to questions.
The defense has been on a pretty steady climb throughout the month. What's your sense for what the catalysts are for the production you guys have had?
I would just say, it's really teamwork, it really is. And, working together, having that continuity, I believe getting the secondary pieces back really helps us. In terms of coverage variation, matchups, being able to process through that as coaches and players. So we're just working through that, and we're working through that this week.
With Roshan, what goes into him practice? What can he do today, and what can't he do?
Yeah, he'll work through today, and then he's just got it's just one more hurdle. It's just one more hurdle. They, during the concussion protocol, they have these levels with good reason, and he's just got to go one more hurdle today.
There were some plays on Sunday where Darnell Wright looked like he was hesitant or couldn't use his left arm. Obviously, you guys knew about the shoulder injury, but did you know he was going to have to kind of gut through it to that extent, or was it something that got worse as the game went on?
Yeah, he just worked through it. I commend him, for doing that. He's was in some pain there and worked through it during the course of the day, and again he pushed through it. And I know it didn't look for him as well as he wanted it to at times, but again he's working through that this week, and we'll see where he is. But I just commend him for gutting it through. Being a young guy like that, going against the pass rusher he was going against. So my hat's off to him.
When you went back through the 2-minute drive just before halftime, any self-assessment or reflection on that entire sequence in terms of strategy and clock management and things like that?
Yeah, you look at that, and really there was 2 plays that stood out with what happened. You get the holding penalty, right, and then you get the sack. So you get 2 negatives there. And even with that, we still had 19 seconds. We still had some timeouts left, so we still had plenty of time to get the ball 12 yards, I believe it was. So we were still okay in there. And again, the one play that happened, where the clock was going, and the one that everybody talks about. Well, the operation's got to be faster there. We got to get that thing down, get the play call, and go, because it started at like 52 seconds, I believe, something like that, 53. So that was out of our zone, just barely out of our zone. So, yeah, I like the operation. I like the way we did it, the way we managed it, but it's got to be operated a little bit quicker.
In that sequence that you mentioned, when you notice that it's not humming and you've got those timeouts in your pocket, why not hit one there when you've got?
Yeah, I mean, because you're looking at it and you're saying, are they going to get it called faster? And certainly you could have done that, but again, we just got to operate quicker.
Matt, Justin Herbert is potentially one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. In the first 3 games, he was great. Last 3, kind of average, below average. What have opponents done to kind of contain him these last 3 games? And how is your defense set up to maybe replicate whatever teams are doing?
Yeah, I mean, he's played some good defenses, right? KC defense is one of the tops in the league, and obviously Spags is a really good coordinator, does a really good job. So that's with that, and he's played some good ones too before that. But I really believe that it's just about those guys working through it. I really believe that sometimes you adjust and adapt a little bit during the course of the game, and I think those defenses did a good job of that, and I'm sure their offense is going to adjust to it as well.
You guys did a good job of giving Tyson short throws and quick decisions for him to make. Can you win consistently without stretching the field deeper?
Yeah, we're always going to look to stretch vertically and horizontally in the passing game. That's always something that we look at, and really you look at the defense that you're playing. So if they give you those opportunities, vertically, you're going to take those. If it's in the side pockets, in the seam, in the deep part of the field, or it might be intermediate routes too. So, you really are looking at those pockets all the time in the space which the defense gives you, and you attack those spaces.
Now that there's film of him, do you expect the next team you face and then the team after that to maybe not give him what the Raiders were giving him?
I mean, yeah, it's the NFL, right? That's what we do. We offensively and defensively attack what we see. So we got to do a good job of, having some multiplicity there. Changing our looks. Changing what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. That's the NFL. You got to do that week to week for sure.
Have you noticed any?
What are you looking at from Braxton to see if he's going to be ready? What are you going to be looking at in practice?
Just functionality. Is he functional in terms of his movements? And what he's done in terms of and then the conditioning. That would be the second thing. And just for him working through it. And when he feels like he's ready, and then the trainers say that he's good to go, and we look at it as coaches, we'll give him the green light. But again, I don't know when that's going to be. He's got 21 days to figure that out, and hopefully it's sooner than later.
Have you noticed any difference in Tyson as he prepares for another game, knowing what he did on Sunday and seeing the film and kind of just saying, okay, I knew I could do it. I showed I could do it. And there's like a different energy around him or anything like that?
I have not. He's been the same guy. He's the same guy as he was last week, and he's prepared. He's focused. He's got that determined look in his eye, and he's just trying to learn the the first and second down today and going through the passes and the different types of passes and the runs and making sure that he operates well.
What do you appreciate about Khalil Mack and what he's been able to do this season?
Yeah, just he's a pro's pro just from what I hear about him and from him being in the building. And then, I got a chance to meet him when he was first here, for just a brief stint, and just admired him over the years. His ability to be a consistent pro and produce every year that he's been healthy and he was out there, and he's a handful.
Matt, with Khalil Mack, you guys are going to face this here. Can you take what you did against Crosby last week and apply it to this game plan, or is it different because Joey Bosa is also on the other side?
It's different. There's a different structure a little bit this week. Sometimes it's the same but it's a different structure. So you got to handle it a little bit differently. They do have a couple guys, they got on the other side, which, obviously creates some situations. They pressure a little bit more, so we got to be ready for those types of things. But yeah, it's a little bit different.
Matt, are you expecting Eddie to try to practice today?
Yeah, we'll see where he is. He's going to go through and we'll see where he is today. He's going to be in a limited fashion today, and we'll see where it goes. And hopefully he's starting to improve that foot.
What have you seen from Elijah over his obviously extended period of time in that role?
Yeah, he's done well. He's functioned well in there. He's played that position, so, Brisk, plays the other spot and coming down and doing the things he does. But he's been good in the back part of the field. And he's communicated well, with Brisker, and now that we got the other guys back, he's done a good job with that. He made some plays. He's made some plays. I think he's gotten better every single week. If you go back to the Tampa game, I think he was pretty good there, and I think he's gotten better every single week.
Tyson, the completion he had to Mercedes, if you remember that one, I'm curious your reaction to just how well it was set up and what he executed and what the whole group executed well on the fake.
Yeah, the play fake was good, right? He's did a nice job of showing the hand and then tucking the ball in the hip, which was really good. And then giving the eye candy with him, really exaggerating the fake, and he came out of there nice. He could have paused maybe another second, and once he gets comfortable doing that, but he came out there with some speed, which is what you need to do, and then he delivered the ball on time. So it was a really good run by Mercedes and getting it down there close to the end zone.
Matt, that Mack and I guess Bosa for that matter know that they've seen on film that Wright is playing with a bum shoulder or bum arm, whatever. Does that make the decision on Wright this week a little trickier, knowing that your defenders know they have a weakness they can attack?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking, on either side of the ball for weaknesses, and it'll come down to his functionality in practice. We'll see where he is, and if he can function well and do a good job with his strength and protecting himself and play at a high level, he'll be in there.
Matt, against the Raiders, we saw a little bit more pitches in the backfield. Is there a reason for that? Does that allow you to do something different offensively when you kind of use the pitch to hand the ball off?
Yeah, you can do pitches when he's behind you, at the same side. It's really just attacking the perimeter. That's just a different way to do that. You can do it with jet sweeps, tosses. You can do it with reverses. You can do it a bunch of different ways, and really just attacking the whole width of the field. So you want to do that in the run game as well. I think when you are able to hit it up, run game inside, and also have the complement to go outside, I think that makes the multiplicity of it and harder to defend.
Has Foreman done enough the last 2 weeks to stay your number one running back when Roshan comes back?
Yeah, I think he's done well. The last couple of weeks, obviously last week was a really good performance, historical for the Bears. But again, it's a week to week, and we're just going to see how he practices. We'll evaluate the group as we go during the course of this week.
Matt, with the trade deadline a week away, Ryan was very active last year. What's sort of the process over this next week between you and him, whether that's adding, subtracting, whatever?
Yeah, just looking, communicating. He'll have me look at different players, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll just see where it is if we have a viable option. So we do that. All right.
Larry.
12.
Test 1, 2. Can you hear me now? Oh, that's how we got it. Here we go. Okay, we're back. We're back. Hold on now. Give it a sec. Let it breathe.
Yeah, now I
And
can
there
hear
we
you.
go. All right. That was head coach of the Chicago Bears, Matt Eberflus. Welcome into the Chicago Bears podcast live with Pat the Designer and Jason McKie, former Chicago Bears fullback and ESPN sideline reporter. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, man. Call into the show 312-332-3776. Listen, J-Mac, it seems that multiplicity is Matt Eberflus's favorite word. That's his word of the day. He's got the little calendar going there, and he's really vibing with that. What'd you hear there that perked your ears up from Flus today?
I mean, just a lot of the injury report. Is good to see that Roschon Johnson is one step closer to being back on the football field. And, I think with what Deontay Foreman and Darrington Evans has done the past few weeks has been great. But adding a dynamic back to that trio and Roschon would even elevate that running game even more. So excited to have him back. A little worried about Darnell Wright. I mean that injury is something to keep an eye on. I think the Bears did a good job last week of really nullifying Max Crosby. I know he got one sack, but I like the plan they had in place in terms of protection, right? And what I mean by plan, I mean, keeping Cole Kmet or Robert Tonyan in on that side, wherever Max Crosby was, chipping him before they went out in routes, but also using running backs to do the same thing, but also in, obvious passing situations where I even seen them a couple times, go a tight bunch where they had a bunch formation, they squeezed it down towards Crosby's side and they even chipped with Tyler Scott as he released for his route. So I think the protection plan was great. And it should have been because they should have learned from their mistakes the previous week. So obviously, like you said, this is a process. The NFL every week it's going to be a different team. Teams are going to try to do different things, but this Chargers defense, yes, they give up a lot of yards in the passing game and total yards overall, and they're one of the bottom defenses in this league. But at the same time, you still got two dynamic pass rushers, in Bosa and Khalil Mack. I mean, Khalil Mack has 7 sacks, so he's a marked man. But this week, you can't just mark one side. You got to mark the other side with Bosa on the other side. So, and then he talked about, the safety, Derwin James. I mean, he's a great player. I mean, he's a safety that you can do a lot of different things with, right? You can play him in the box, but he's also great in coverage. So he's what would you call, he's a piece. He's a chess piece that, their defense has to where they can use him in a variety of ways. So he's also a marked man that you got to, have on your mind each and every play, pre-snap read. You got to know where he's at on the field.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we saw something this week that was exciting from the Chicago Bears as far as the offensive line went. Felt like you had a really good combination. You had at your right tackle. I mean, you're sitting there going from right tackle pretty much to center. You felt pretty confident in what you had out there, and especially the fact that your center was able to snap the football straight back. But even seeing Cody Whitehair still be able to be utilized out there at the left guard position, and getting the news today that Braxton Jones will return to practice today, and that he's starting to open up his window for him to get back. You're starting to see this offensive line get healthy at the right time of the season for you, and on top of that, at the right time where it feels like you have your best blocking scheme that we've seen. I've never seen anybody just completely shut Max Crosby out as far as pressures and things like that go. It really felt like the combination that the offensive line had as far and the quarterback play in there. You got to give credit to Tyson Bagent being able to kind of move in the pocket and be able to vacate his space when he needed to, and to get to extend plays. I really liked what we saw from that offensive line play, and it's good to hear that they're starting to get healthy now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you have right the mix in offensive lines, right, the shuffling that we've had all year, Whitehair at center, and then Whitehair at left guard, now Tevin Jenkins in right guard. It's tough. I mean, it's tough for those guys, and it's about on the offensive line. It's about communication and continuity, right? And you got to understand and have a relationship with the guy you're playing next to, because these defensive lines, these defensive fronts, they're going to bring a lot of things, right? They're going to align all different ways, give you exotic looks, and they're going to a lot of stunts, ETs and TTs in which the two tackles are twisting in the middle, ETs in which the end is coming first, that tackle's looping around. And you got to be on the same page, and you got to be on the same page in terms of knowing when to pass it off or knowing when to stay on your man. And if you're not on the same page and if you're not used to that guy next to you, then you're going to get all types of pressure and you're going to be all out of whack. And then on top of that, you talked about the snaps. Like the snaps was huge this week. I mean,
Yeah.
the play starts with the snap, but if that snap is high or it's off, it's going to disrupt the timing and the rhythm in the passing game. And that's the thing that we saw this week. Last week, we saw rhythm and timing in the passing game. And Tyson Bagent is a rhythmic passer, which means, like I've been saying all along, if it's a 3-step drop, that ball's coming out on his 3rd step. If it's a deeper drop, 5-step drop, that ball's coming out on his 5th step. He's a decisive decision maker. And when he delivers that ball, he delivers it with conviction. But what I was really impressed with was the accuracy and the location he put some of these footballs in. I mean, there was one he threw to Mooney over the middle where he threw it low and away from the defender where only Darnell Mooney can make that catch. There was another play in which he scrambled out. It was 3rd and 5. He scrambled out to his right, and he delivered a ball on the run on the sideline, low and away to where DJ Moore can make that catch, but also convert on 1st down. So when you have a quarterback that's in rhythm, right? His timing's not being disrupted. He can be effective. And I thought it was a great game plan, last week. But this week it's a whole different ball game because you have a Chargers team that does give up a lot of yards in the passing game. And I think eventually you're going to have to take the string off Tyson Bagent and let him throw that ball downfield.
No, 100%. That's the part I think that is the most concerning with a lot of fans, right? And I think when people hear us say, right, throw the football downfield, I think we mean like DJ Moore on a go route, dropping back, you got to let that thing fly 40 yards. That's not what I'm looking to see here. But they're going to take away a lot of the intermediate stuff, a lot of the short stuff. One, you have to be able to create time with Khalil Mack and Nick Bosa on the other side of you. That's not an easy thing to do. You have to be able to create that time for your quarterback to be able to get the football out, which I do like the 12 personnel that we've seen on tape the last couple of weeks. Even a little bit of 13, not too much 13 personnel, but seeing that 12 personnel out there, right? Seeing Mercedes Lewis to help Darnell Wright, who clearly had issues with the shoulder. I'll even give credit to Cole Kmet, which is something I don't do blocking-wise much when you're really being 100% honest about it. Like, he actually had a good day blocking for Tyson Bagent out there. And he didn't have a ton of catches yesterday, but I thought he did a really good job keeping his hands up and being able to attack in the blocking scheme. I think if Roschon Johnson is able to come back, remember, he's not fully cleared yet. That adds to that blocking. I think that we'll see him out there. He is an excellent blocker, which is why he's doing so well on all the phases of special teams that he's on as well, right? Like, those are the things paired with, okay, now can Tyson Bagent deliver a 15-yard pass down the field accurately? There's so much up front that has to happen for the Bears to have success throwing a deep ball, because I do think that even though this defense of the Chargers, I mean, it's so spotty. Like, you have elite pass rushers, but outside of that, it's so spotty. I still think that they'll do a lot to take away those short passes and say, all right, Rook, we saw you do this last week. We're going to take this away. You beat us down there. Hats off to you.
Yeah, but it's a defense that gives up a lot of explosive plays. And last week against Kansas City, I mean, they gave up a lot of explosive plays. And obviously, when you're playing the Chiefs teams that's got to go like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, you're going to give up big plays. But they've been doing it all year. They've been solid and they give them explosive plays. So that's something that, as a Bears offense, we haven't been able to generate consistently, is being able to generate explosive plays. So that's something to see. Like I said before, are they going to actually take the reins off Tyson Bagent and let him push that ball downfield? And I'm not a numbers guy, but I'd be interested to know, what was the average in terms of his passing? Like how deep was he throwing the ball last week? And I don't think it was that far. It's probably under 10 yards if we could find that stat. So I'm interested to see, are they going to allow Tyson Bagent to try to take the top off a defense that's giving up explosive plays, but is also one of the bottom teams in the league in terms of defending the pass?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think his longest pass yesterday, I'm trying to see if I can pull it up here. I think his longest pass, here's this passing chart here. Let's see if I can drop this in here real quick. I mean, you're not sitting here talking about him, slinging it downfield, but I can't say that he can't do it because they didn't ask him to do it, right? Like, the game plan for Bagent was for him to, get the ball out quickly, get the ball to the man that was right there. Here's the chart right here. I mean, these are your next gen stats from the NFL here. I mean, 21 for 29, 162 yards. Nothing crazy to sit here and talk about, but, he was efficient.
100%.
Maybe, let's see, 1, 2 passes, 3 passes past 10 yards on the whole day, but efficient. And you know what? If I've got a young man back there, especially as a backup quarterback, who this is his first, I mean, we talked about it on the post-game show, right? Like Colorado School of Mines is the team that he was getting ready for. He just went out there and beat the Vegas Raiders. This is his first real NFL action in a real game. And he went out there and was like, I'm not going to do too much. I'm just going to take what the coaches want me to take. I feel good about that. And I feel good about that with where this Bears team is heading health-wise. Talked about Roschon Johnson with the game we saw from Deontay Foreman last week, J-Mac. I got to ask you this. We got a running back controversy heading our way, my guy, because, listen, there's a lot of good guys that are in that backfield and a lot of guys that have shown you production. But as you've talked about, Deontay Foreman is just a running back here. He's not a guy that's going to be a four-phase guy, and that seems to be what the Bears have looked to more times than not.
It's a good problem to have. When you got that many backs or a position group that's productive and that has a lot of talent, it's a good problem for the coach to have. And, you know, Deontay Foreman is going to be in the lineup. He's earned it with the way he's played the last 2 weeks. Now, the question is, you know, who's going to be inactive? Because Darrington Evans has done some good things. Roschon comes back. Travis Homer plays all special teams. Roschon Johnson can play special teams. So, you know, I'm not sure if Darrington Evans becomes inactive. You insert Roschon in there just because Travis Homer can play all special teams, and then may limit Roschon's role on special teams due to the fact that he is coming back from, you know, a concussion. I don't know how their formula is going to work, but at the same time, as Bears fans and analysts, we can be comfortable with whoever's back there in the backfield. They're going to be productive because that's how we've been. I think we're 5th in the league in rushing. You know, I think we're averaging 141 yards a game, and that's great because if there's something that you want to build upon offensively, right, it's the run game. And we did that last week, right? We talk about Tyson Bagent not throwing the ball downfield. Well, he didn't have to because the run game was so effective. But also, when we look at the passes that he had, a lot of those came off of play action, right? A lot of those came off run action because we were so solid in the run game. So if you have a solid running game, which you're going to need again this week to help nullify a pass rush, then that can set up things in a passing game for Tyson. And like we said, us trying to generate explosive plays, well, those explosive passes and those explosive plays will come off of solid running game. So I'm excited to see how it's developed. I think he's going to be even better this week. You know, he's such a cool, calm, and collected guy. He has a quiet confidence about him, but when he speaks, he's always giving praise to his teammates. He's always giving praise to his receivers. It's not about him, and that's what you want in a leader at quarterback, right? It's not about me, it's about we, and that's the type of guy he is. So I'm excited to see, you know, how much better he is this week with another week of complete preparation where he doesn't get like limited amount of reps. He's getting all the reps in practice.
Yeah.
He knows he's the guy this week. And I want to see how they're going to open up this game plan even more, you know, to really accentuate his skill set.
All right, let's keep this thing moving right along, right? Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love. Hit that like button if you're over on the YouTube side. Subscribe to the page. Y'all already know what they're doing. You can call into the show, chop it up with us as well, 312-332-3776. Here's the one thing that I do want to ask you, because if we're having a conversation offensively, what the Bears are going to be able to go out there and do versus struggling defense, right? We also have to have the conversation about what can the Bears defense do that has moved in the right direction over the last 3 weeks that, to me, I don't know if the offense is struggling out there, but like they're confusing. There's moments where it's like, that's exactly what I want to see from the Chargers. And then there's other moments where I'm like, y'all forgot Austin Eckler existed on this team, huh? Like, we just not using him at all anymore. He's out of there, huh? What do the Bears have to do defensively to go out there and dominate this Chargers team? Because I use the word dominate because the way these linebackers have been flying around has been a dominating performance.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers offense is like us, right? It's up, down, up, down, up, down. Confusing. One game plan's great, the next week is bad. Like that's they're a mirror image of our offense, to be quite honest.
Brandon Staley's in trouble.
Yeah, but defensively, you know, it's been a steady climb the last few weeks. We've gotten better. You know, guys have been flying around making plays, and I want to highlight a couple guys. And I know we talk about Jalen Johnson that got the 2 takeaways last week. That's great. The guy who was really flying around that I was really encouraged to see, who really made a lot of plays this past Sunday, was Jaquan Brisker, man. Jaquan Brisker was flying around.
I believe he had 10 tackles on the day.
But he was an enforcer, right? And that's what you want from your safety, right? He's a guy that can play in the box, but not just play in the box, right? He's a sure tackler, right? And that's what we've seen this year. He's been making tackles, making sure tackles. And yeah, he'll miss a few, but at the same time, he's there. He's made more tackles than he's missed. And last week we saw a guy who shied away from tackles and cornerback Marcus Peters, like he's just getting out the way. But I love the fact that we see a defense. I love the fact that we see a defense that's playing.
It's called business decisions, J-Mac. Business
decisions. It's a business decision. That's what you call it. But it's good to see a defense, right, that's playing with confidence, right, that's playing with intensity, right, that's going out there making plays. And that's what the principle of the defense is supposed to be. And we didn't see that the first few weeks, but now we're starting to see that. Guys are starting to understand their role in the scheme more. The communication is better on the back end. The one thing we still need to see is more sacks. We haven't seen enough sacks. We got 10 total. So we need to get better in that aspect. I would love to see them, get Justin Herbert on the ground, make sure we're hitting him, make sure he's uncomfortable in that pocket. Because the Chargers, they're gonna sling that ball. They're gonna throw that ball.
Oh, yeah.
Herbert's gonna have 30 plus pass attempts. I mean, easily. They're gonna throw that ball. So we got to get pressure on him. And their receiving core is going to be a challenge. I mean, Keenan Allen is a dog. Gerald Everett's really good at tight end. I mean, they got some guys that can make plays in the passing game, and we're going to have to try to make Herbert uncomfortable in the pocket by getting some pressure. And our secondary is going to have to come to play like they did last week.
Thought you mentioned a really interesting name, and we talked with Courtney Cronin about him yesterday as well. Jalen Johnson. What we've seen from Jalen Johnson, since he's been back. Of course, we knew the PBU numbers were going to be there, but the elite QBR against him, I believe he has a QBR of 22 when quarterbacks throw his way. He's not allowing anything to get through, and we finally see the takeaways. Me and you talked preseason about kind of, okay, listen, I like Jalen Johnson. I think he's a really good DB. But what do you pay? You pay those takeaway numbers. Now, the takeaway numbers need to continue. Let's not have 2 picks, and we're talking about 2 picks by the end of the year. But with the takeaway numbers added to that, do you feel a lot better about having Jalen Johnson be a long-term part of this team and getting a contract done with him? Or are you still on the trade him while the value is high?
Yeah, I think, I think there's still obviously more evaluations to be done. I think he's a really good corner, and I'm not going to, obviously you get paid for takeaways, right? But at the same time, when you have a corner, right, he may not be getting the takeaways or the amount of takeaways that some of these other elite corners in this league is getting. But the fact is he's a guy you can trust. He's a guy that can do a lot of different things, right? He can play in coverage. He can play man. A lot of times last week we saw him lined up or follow Devontae Adams in coverage. So that's when you have that type of versatility or that type of corner where you can go out there and trust him to make sure, he does his job each and every week. It gives you comfortability. And I'll pay for comfortability because especially when you have 2 young corners in this defense like Tyreek Stevens, Terrell Smith, you're going to go through a lot of growing pains. So I think he's a guy that these young guys, they'll gravitate to and they can learn the game from him. So, one thing you're paying for a guy that can go out there and play at an elite level, but at the same time, you're also paying for a guy who can accelerate the development of the 2 young corners that you have in this room.
Yeah, it's to me looking at how he's affecting even the game, seeing him on the sidelines, like being at the game, you do get to see a lot more, right? You see him on the sidelines constantly talking to Tyreek Stevenson, constantly trying, okay, this is what you need. Like Tyreek Stevenson goes down, and it's kind of funny, right? Because he ends up getting a big PI right after that. I don't know if that was PI, but I mean, everything's PI in today's NFL, but Tyreek ends up getting a PI, and you see him over there. Listen, got to get your head around this. Yeah, I mean, you could see what he's telling them, and then you see him get the PI, 2 plays later. But trying to coach these young guys up and build up this young DB room, I think that's the reason why. And I see a couple of guys over on the Twitch side, right? Like they're not fans of what Eddie Jackson brings as far as tackling and different things like that, but the leadership that those pieces bring. You have to look at last season where you had Roquan Smith here and you trade him away and how it gutted your defense. That defense, not to say it was elite, but it was starting to move a little bit forward. And it seemed like you literally gutted the defense to try and jumpstart this rebuild, right? I don't know if you can take that chance and do that this season by moving on from these pieces, but that brings the tough question. Where are you bringing Jalen Johnson in financially, right? We looked it up over on the post-game show. If you're paying Jalen Johnson, 16 to 18 million, you're putting him up at Xavier Howard territory. Is he a Xavier Howard level DB? Are you allowing him to then, push the market forward? That's the biggest question with Jalen Johnson that you have to have right now.
Yeah, and the league's all about dollars and cents, right?
Oh,
If
yeah.
the dollars make sense, they're gonna pay you. If it don't, they ain't gonna pay you. I mean, that's the NFL in a nutshell. I mean, that's the NFL. But at the same time, I look at what he brings, right? Value in terms of how he plays on the field. I'm talking about production, not in terms of takeaway, but in terms of what he does for this defense, right? And I think he's another guy. He's a culture builder, right? I think he's a guy that you got to have in your locker room because he's an enforcer, and he's one of the guys when he speaks, people listen.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's been missing in this locker room for a long time because there's been so much turnover. There's been so much change in the roster.
Yeah.
I played on this team in which, we had continuity. We had a lot of the same guys in that locker room, and we had those leaders that were constants in that locker room. So if things weren't going well, right, we held ourselves to a standard that the coaches could never hold ourselves to. And that's the type of play, or that's the type of leadership you need from your team if you want to be an elite team, right? The standard has to be held at a higher level than any other coaches can hold you to. And that's how you become great. That's how you become a playoff team. That's how you go on a Super Bowl run. But if you don't have that type of leadership, if you don't have those type of alphas, if you don't have those types of dogs in the locker room, but guess what? You're going to get your ASS whooped each and every week because you don't have that guy that's going to say, look here, this crap isn't going right. Let's get this ish together. You don't have those guys, right? You have guys that don't know where to turn to, right? They're like lame dogs walking around looking for food, like looking for answers. Like they don't have that. But when you have that guy that you can look up to, right? Somebody that's doing things the right way, right? They're the first person in the building, the last one out, right? They're doing extra things, doing extra lift, getting extra film study, or they're encouraging guys, hey, let's come back. We're not leaving yet. We need more film to watch. Hey, where you going? You got to put in some extra reps. If you don't have that type of leadership within your locker room amongst the players, well, guess what? You'll never be an elite team, ever. And that's the NFL, period. You look at all the elite teams in this league, we can go down the roster, Pat. You can look at all the elite teams in this league. You go down the roster. They have those guys. They have those.
Yeah.
Coaches.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, like,
I'm 100% right.
I don't know if the Bills are elite, but I throw them in there, right? The Chiefs, the Cowboys feel like they don't.
It doesn't have to be elite. I'm talking about good playoff caliber teams.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I agree with you. That is, you said that a couple of times, but it is one of those things where you see it really show as the season plays out and the standings play out, right? Because these guys have been there before. They understand, okay, this is what we need to do to get to this level, right? When you look at Philly's a group of tested veterans. And now you add Jalen Hurts into that as far as, yes, he was a veteran, but now he's a veteran that has led a team to a Super Bowl, could not get the dub in that Super Bowl, but played a heck of a game in that Super Bowl and just lost to the better team, right? So as you start to break it down, as you start to look at those teams who are at the top, yeah, I get you on that. I mean, like that is being player led makes a big difference. Let's close it out with this though, J-Mac, because fast approaching trade deadline here. And there's a lot of names that have been thrown around as far as pieces going to different teams. Commanders are supposed to be sellers. Denver's supposed to be sellers. If you're the Chicago Bears right now, where are you at? Are you standing pat? Are you a buyer? Because I know a lot of people are looking at it like, how can you buy with this team?
Yeah.
You still need to add pieces to this team. And there are pieces that could be game-changing pieces out there that are available, Chase Young being one of them, right? Or are you selling on the flip side of this because you know what? We need to still make sure that we maintain a top 5 draft pick with our pick as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough question for me because I'm a coach. So I look at who's in the building now. I look at the task at hand. But at the same time, if I put on my GM hat, you're always going to look for ways to improve your team, no matter what, no matter when it is, whenever you have an opportunity. If you can bring a guy in, right, that can improve your team, right, not just on the football field, but like I said, improve the culture, improve the standard, improve the overall excellence in the building. You're going to do your due diligence to do background check on that guy. And if you have an opportunity to bring him in, like we've seen with Poles, he'll pull the trigger and bring him in. So I'm not going to be surprised if they do make moves, with the trade deadline coming up. But I know it's going to be moves in which he thinks to make our team better. Now we say, hey, do we do this with the current situation of the team, 2-5? Do we have a chance to really make the playoffs? End of the day, you're trying to make your team better, regardless of the situation. And if they can pull the trigger now, I see them, if there's somebody out there that they're enamored with and they have an opportunity to get, and, you know, like we talked about, Jalen Johnson, if they want to unload him because they don't feel like he's worth the money and they feel like they can get a lot back for him and a guy that can help this team in the future and maybe even some draft capital, I wouldn't be surprised if they did pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to be conscious of the repercussions of trading away a big piece like that, but the gain is the gain worth it because you're going to go out there. One, you get Tyree Stevenson with number 1 reps again, right? He's not getting those with Jalen Johnson out there right now. And two, you get you're able to get that draft capital back possibly for this year, maybe even going into next season.
Yeah.
There's a lot to weigh out there. It's not a simple, I can cut bait with him because he's not worth the money. I can't cut bait with him because I don't have a lot of. That's the other thing, too. There's not a lot of options. Terrell Smith is not coming back for a while. So your DB room, if you trade away Jalen Johnson or Eddie Jackson, even though Eddie hasn't been out there, is very thin.
Very thin.
But yeah, man, appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love. I think we're going to call that one pod right there, my guy. One pod. Appreciate J-Mac, as always, for tuning in. And we got an interesting game to continue breaking down. Me and Courtney Cronin on tomorrow, breaking down more from the Chicago Bears versus Chargers matchup. Make sure to tune in with us on that. And listen, if you couldn't catch the entire thing, over on Apple Podcasts as well. As always, it's your boy, Pat the Designer, back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. One love. Peace.
Bear down.